Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. This Saturday is UFC Vegas 47, and in the main event, you have a very important middleweight fight between Jack Hermansson and Sean Strickland, and this video is going to be my full breakdown and prediction, and I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think stylistically, it's a very intriguing matchup, and I really think this fight is a hard fight to pick. I've went back and forth on my prediction, going back and forth, looking at these guys' previous fights, and I think I finally have an idea who I'm picking. We'll get to that in a minute. But if you look at the tail of the tape, Jack Hermansson is currently ranked number 6 in the UFC official rankings, while Sean Strickland is ranked number 7. Hermansson is 33 years old. Strickland is 30 years old. They are both 6'1". Hermansson has a 77.5-inch reach, while Strickland has a 76-inch reach. So a little bit of a reach advantage for Hermansson, but other than that, most everything else is the same. They're very close in age, and they're the exact same height. So if you look at Jack Hermansson's resume, for the last couple of years, he's been trading wins and losses. He's on a one-fight win streak currently. His last fight was against Edmund Shabazian in May of 2021, and this wasn't the greatest performance. In the first round, he was really getting lit up by Edmund Shabazian, losing on the feet. In the second round, he was able to take Edmund Shabazian down, control him on the ground, really rough him up on the ground, beat him up with ground and pound. Eventually gets reversed and ends up ending the round on the bottom, but he won the round 10-9. And then in the third round, as Edmund Shabazian started to fade, he was able to take him down, control him on the ground, and absolutely brutalize him with elbows, cut him open, busted him up. It was a really bad beating, and the third round for Jack Hermansson was an amazing performance, but I think it was because Edmund Shabazian really started to fade. And Edmund Shabazian, I don't know who his manager is as far as getting him fights and booking him fights, but terrible matchup as far as Jack Hermansson, and then his last few fights against guys who are going to take him down and beat him up. Before that, his last fight before that was December of 2020 against Marvin Vettori, and he lost this fight via decision. And this was actually a really good performance by Jack Hermansson. He was hurt badly in the first round, almost finished by Marvin Vettori. Somehow he survives, and he makes the rest of the fight competitive. And I can't remember exactly how I scored that fight. I think Vettori clearly won. But I think in the later rounds, the fight got closer as the fight got longer. I think the third, fourth, and fifth round were relatively close. I don't remember who exactly I scored it for, but it was crazy. He could go from getting hurt badly, and I think he injured his eye in that fight, maybe a broken orbital. I might be confusing that with another fight. But to absorb that damage and then be able to make the fight competitive after almost getting finished in the first round. And also he showed off his stamina in that fight. And we've seen how good Marvin Vettori is since then. He's very well rounded. So it's not the worst loss to have on your record. Before that, I think this is his most impressive win on his resume. He defeated Kelvin Gastelum via first round submission. And this only took about a minute and a half, I think, to get the submission via heel hook. And he just... Jack Hermansson went out there and just showed he was the superior submission artist in this fight and just submitted Kelvin Gastelum so quickly. And I know people kind of crap on Kelvin Gastelum now, but I still think Kelvin Gastelum is one of the best middleweights in the world. He has a fight coming up against Nasruddin Imavov, but I still think even though Kelvin Gastelum's on this long losing streak, I think that fight has still aged very well. And then you go back a little bit further in Jack Hermansson's resume. He's fought some legitimate names. He beat Jacare Souza, won by decision. He beat David Branch by submission, and he has a submission win over Gerald Meerschaert. I think all those wins are quality wins. He does have the loss to Marvin Vettori, and he also has a loss to Jared Cannonier, where he was stopped in the second round. But it is what it is. Jared Cannonier has powerful hands. He clipped him and then took him out in that fight in the second round. And that was a fight where had he beat Jared Cannonier, Jack Hermansson was getting very close to a title shot. So it sucks for him that he lost that. He comes back, he beats Kelvin Gastelum, and then loses to Vettori, and then now beats Edmund Shabazian. And now he has a fight against Sean Strickland. If you look at Sean Strickland, he comes into this fight on a 5-fight winning streak, but he doesn't have the best resume. Sean Strickland was originally a middleweight, and then he moved down to welterweight, fought in the UFC at welterweight for a little bit, had kind of, trading wins and losses, and then eventually moved up to middleweight and started having a little bit of success. At welterweight, he lost to Santiago Ponzinibbio by decision. He lost to Kamaru Usman by decision. Not too bad, not two losses that are bad to have on the resume. I mean, they're great against good competition. Then I believe he moved up to middleweight for the Jack Marshman fight. He won that fight pretty dominantly. He won it by decision. Then he TKOs Brendan Allen. Then he wins a decision against Christoph Jocko, which I don't think that was actually the best performance. Sean Strickland was getting lit up in that fight. And, I know he won. I think he won all 3 rounds if I remember correctly. but he was absorbing a good bit of damage. And I know he was walking him down and leaving himself susceptible to shots, and it was still a decent performance. But, to get lit up by a guy like Jocko, I know, it's just not the best look. And then he goes on to beat Uriah Hall. That's his most recent fight, July of 2021. And in that fight, he absolutely outclassed Uriah Hall. I actually picked against Sean Strickland in this fight. I thought that Uriah Hall was the more dynamic, the more powerful striker, and I thought that Sean Strickland walked into too many shots and Uriah Hall would end up finishing him via TKO, catching him with a big powerful shot, maybe a head kick or a spinning kick, and eventually put him down and TKO him. But Sean Strickland went out there, walked him down, threw combinations, and just beat up Uriah Hall. He even mixed in the grappling, took Uriah Hall down a little bit, ground and pound him in this fight. And overall, just beat him for 5 straight rounds. I don't think Uriah Hall won a single round. And why I think this is his best win on his resume, we all know what happens with Uriah Hall. This guy, sometimes he shows up and sometimes he doesn't. Sometimes he comes out there. There's fighters like this who show up and they look like world-class elite athletes or elite fighters. And then there's sometimes they show up and they look absolutely awful. And this was one of the times that Uriah Hall just did not show up for a fight. And I hate to say that because I feel like I'm trying to discredit the win of Sean Strickland. But we all know that goes on with Uriah Hall. So, I don't really, I don't really look too much to that win to say, oh, Sean Strickland is so good. And the other loss that I wanted to mention Sean Strickland has, I think he's only ever been KO'd one time, and that was by Elizas Zaleski dos Santos. He got spinning wheel kicked and then TKO'd with follow-up shots. That was a long while ago. That was back in 2018, so that's 4 years ago, and that's the only time he's ever been stopped, and I think he's lost the other two. Yeah, the other 2 losses were by decision. So it's not like Sean Strickland's out there getting finished constantly, even against Kamaru Usman. Not that Kamaru Usman's some crazy finisher, but you see the level of competition he's fought on the come-up. So as far as my breakdown of the actual fight, I find this stylistic matchup very intriguing because I think we kind of all know the strategy for both guys. Jack Hermansson wants to come out, clinch up with Sean Strickland, take him down, look for the submission, look for the ground and pound, and really just kind of limit the standing exchanges as much as possible. Then we know Sean Strickland wants to come in, keep it on the feet. He wants to walk Jack Hermansson down, throw combinations, land with volume, and just put the pace on him. And I truly believe that depending on the way it goes, if you tell me 100% certainty Jack Hermansson's having success with the takedowns, I'm sure that Jack Hermansson's going to win. If you tell me that Sean Strickland's having success defending the takedowns, I'm very confident that Sean Strickland is going to win. I don't see Jack Hermansson coming in here and outstriking Sean Strickland. I don't see Sean Strickland coming in here and out-grappling Jack Hermansson. I know there's been some talk about, Khamzat Chimaev trains with Sean Strickland or looks for him for grappling, training partners. But all I could find, and if someone can correct me on this, comment it down below, but all I could find was an interview by James Lynch where Sean Strickland said while they were in Vegas for a couple weeks, they trained for a little bit and had some crazy wars. So I don't really take that much away from it. We haven't seen too much grappling out of Sean Strickland. So I think that Jack Hermansson has shown in the past. Also, he's a big middleweight. And Sean Strickland, former welterweight, not the biggest guy. I think Jack Hermansson's clearly going to have the grappling edge. And I know some people are talking that, and we've heard it with Justin Gaethje before, that Sean Strickland has really good grappling, really good jiu-jitsu, but he hasn't had an opportunity to show it. And I know he showed it a little bit in the Uriah Hall fight. I think he showed it in another fight as well, just a little bit, maybe the Brendan Allen fight. I can't remember. I think he showed good takedown defense in that fight, if I remember correctly. But I just believe that if Jack Hermansson comes out there and has success with these takedowns, I think eventually he's going to find a submission or he's going to end up ground and pounding Sean Strickland. My official prediction for this fight, and I've tossed this back and forth because, again, I really believe that if Jack Hermansson's able to impose his will and use the takedowns and have success with the takedowns in this fight, I believe he will win this fight. But again, if Sean Strickland's able to keep it on the feet, I believe he will win this fight. So my official prediction for this fight, I am going to go Sean Strickland by decision. I just think that Jack Hermansson, while he has really good top game and really good jiu-jitsu, he doesn't have the best entries to takedowns. And Sean Strickland kind of has, he keeps the hands a little bit low. He's got a little bit of a funky style. He's going to be anticipating the takedowns of Jack Hermansson. Jack Hermansson's not particularly fast. He's not particularly, doesn't have the best trips, doesn't have the best takedowns. He has takedown ability, but his specialty is more of the top game, the ground and pound, the jiu-jitsu, and he has trouble getting guys there at some point in time. In the Marvin Vettori fight, wasn't able to get Marvin Vettori down. In the Edmund Shabazian fight, in the first round in particular, when Shabazian was fresh, wasn't able to get him down. Eventually, as Shabazian faded, he was able to get him down. But even in the Shabazian fight, in the second round, when Shabazian was a little bit tired, he was able to reverse position on Jack Hermansson and end up on top. And I think that Sean Strickland's grappling is good enough to avoid those takedowns and really just put the pace on Jack Hermansson. I'm not really high on either one of these guys. I don't think Sean Strickland is some kind of world beater. I think he has just good enough striking. He kind of plots forward, he throws hands, and it's not like he's this big power puncher. He's more of a volume guy, but he really beats guys up. It seems like, in his last few fights, he busted up Uriah Hall. He busted up Brendan Allen. And he just puts it on these guys, and he puts a pace that they cannot keep. And I know both these guys have great stamina. Jack Hermansson showed amazing stamina in the Marvin Vettori fight. Sean Strickland showed great stamina in the Uriah Hall fight. And he was throwing a lot of volume in that fight as well. Obviously, they both got a little bit tired towards the fifth round. But I don't see either guy really gassing out. And also, I don't think Strickland has the power to put Jack Hermansson away. I don't think he's going to finish him. He's going to bust him up, but I don't think he's going to be able to finish him. I think he'll be able to defend the takedowns. I think, Hermansson's going to be shooting in on sloppy shots, and he's just not going to be able to get it. Now, maybe, just maybe, if Hermansson can, a lot of guys go in there and let Sean Strickland dictate the pace, let him pressure them nonstop. If Hermansson can come into this fight, chop the low kicks, teeps to the body, maintain the distance, don't let Sean Strickland just constantly press you backwards, I think Jack Hermansson has a legitimate chance in this fight. I think, Sean Strickland has showed great stamina, but if he's not able to set the pace, and if he's backing up for fear of the takedowns, let's say Hermansson gets a takedown in round one and is able to control him on the ground, and then Sean Strickland's worried about the takedown, he's not going to be able to put that forward pressure on Jack Hermansson like he typically would. And if Hermansson's able to do that, then I think he has a legitimate shot to win this fight, and I think he will win this fight if he's, when the first round starts, in the first two rounds really, I'll really be able to get a feel for who's going to win this fight, because if Hermansson's allowing Strickland just to walk him down, just plot forward nonstop, and he's not stopping that forward motion of Sean Strickland, it's going to be over for Jack Hermansson, because Strickland puts together combination after combination. He doesn't really get tired. He's throwing like 70% power. He's busting you up, and he just doesn't stop, and he doesn't really get all that tired doing that. But if you can put him on the defensive, make him worry about the wrestling, back him up a little bit, I think Strickland will kind of get tired more than he would typically. And I think then Hermansson can exploit some of those takedowns, look for a submission, or maybe just wrestle him for most of the rounds or 3 out of 5 rounds and win a decision. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think Strickland is going to be walking him down, busting him up. I think it's going to be a competitive fight. I do think it's going to be a competitive fight, but I think Strickland's going to be walking him down, throwing combinations, landing. He's not going to finish Hermansson. Hermansson is very durable. So is Sean Strickland. And I think eventually it's going to go all the way to decision. And I think, if I had to guess, I would say 3-2 Sean Strickland or 4-1 Sean Strickland. I think Hermansson has a legitimate shot. He has some good leg kicks, and Sean Strickland's really heavy on that lead leg. So if Hermansson can really chew up that lead leg and maintain that distance, he has a legitimate shot to win this fight. And I think this is a massive fight for Sean Strickland, because if you look at the middleweight division, there's a lot of parity going on. Israel Adesanya has fought a lot of these guys twice. And if Sean Strickland can go out there and get an impressive win, and then maybe Brunson beats Jarrett Cannonier, one of the only few guys who hasn't fought Israel Adesanya, and then Adesanya beats Whitaker, I think Sean Strickland could be next in line for a title shot with a win over Jack Hermansson. As crazy as that sounds, there's not a lot of guys out there, to fight Israel Adesanya if he's able to defeat Robert Whitaker in the rematch at UFC 271. I honestly am sad that we didn't get to see. Originally, Sean Strickland was supposed to fight at UFC 268 against Luke Rockhold, former champion. I'm really sad that we didn't get to see that fight. That fight would have been very compelling just because it would have been a similar stylistic matchup to the Hermansson versus Strickland matchup, because Luke Rockhold would have wanted to take him down, ground him out, and just use his top game to control him. And Luke Rockhold, I think, has a little bit better striking, but he's been out for a while, and then also the chin issues. But if Strickland can come out here and get a big win over Jack Hermansson, I think he puts himself right at the top of the list, or very close, at least maybe one fight away but maybe even a title shot right after this, especially if it's an impressive performance. And obviously, Adesanya has to beat Whitaker, because if Whitaker wins in the rematch, they're going to do the Adesanya-Whitaker trilogy. So this is a massive fight, and that's why I'm so excited about this main event, because for me, I look forward to fights that have real meaning relevant to the division. And Sean Strickland could be looking at a title shot. Maybe Jack Hermansson, I don't know, just because he would only be on a 2-fight winning streak after this. But maybe if he gets a big win here and then, Adesanya doesn't have anybody to fight and he wants to stay active, Jack Hermansson could be looking at a title shot too. But either way, an impressive win by either guy. I think Max maybe one more fight away from a title shot, depending on how the division plays out. So I'm really looking forward to this matchup. I think it's a very intriguing stylistic matchup. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Who do you think is going to win, Sean Strickland or Jack Hermansson? Don't forget to like the video if you enjoyed it, and thank you so much for watching.